The people have asked and I shall deliver. Let's talk about how to find out a woman's real sexual history. Alright, now that I have your attention, let's make something very clear first. First things first, knowing about a woman's sexual history should not become an obsession. It should be a side project, something you should do on the side. Granted, it is useful information, but my job here will be to teach you what to do with that information and how to use it correctly. More specifically, how to properly interpret this information. Because a lot of guys have a huge problem with that. Like seriously, I'm trying to warn you here. If you cannot handle this and you're really honest with yourself about your level of emotional strength, then I highly suggest that you stop watching this video right now. Like, just go ahead, click off. Scroll up, go. Because what you're about to learn will both open your eyes and break your heart in many ways. A lot of you will not be able to handle this mentally. Alright, that's a disclaimer. If you're still here, you've been fucking warned. No, like seriously, this is all on you now. Don't run crying back to me, alright? Okay, Women's Sexual History 101. Let's go. A lot of people ask me, Jason, how do you ask a girl's body count? How do you know what it is? And the answer to that question, believe it or not, is you ask directly. Hold on, let me explain. You see, whenever you ask a woman what her sexual history is, she's not actually going to give you the correct history of it. And she's going to go out of her way to hide what she feels are the most embarrassing parts of her history. For two main reasons. One, she wants to appear like a higher value option on the sexual and dating marketplace. This one, you can't even really be mad at. It is what it is. But then two, which is majority of the time, believe it or not, even they don't know what the number is themselves. Like seriously, you could put a girl on a polygraph test and they will pass it with flying colors. Because women have selective memory. Their subconscious, in order for them not to crumble under the guilt of giving themselves up so easily and as often as they actually did, will go out of its way to block out entire memories, man. And then don't get me started on all the backwards rationalization that they usually do. Oh, it was in another country, that doesn't count. He used a condom, that doesn't count. I was under the age of 22 and I wasn't mature then, that doesn't count. He was a member of a different race, that doesn't count. And yes, that last one is a real thing. I would know. So best believe when you ask directly, they're going to lie. Or they'll tell you what they think is the truth, but it's gonna be a lie regardless. Shit is gonna get omitted, left out, etc. So why do I say to ask directly anyway? Because it's not the answer they give you that actually matters. What really matters is the context around the answer they give you. More specifically, the clues they try to hide from you within the answer. When you ask a woman her body count directly, you achieve two main objectives at the same time. The first being is you give her the opportunity to lie to you. Why would you want your woman lying to you? Simple. Because now you know what it looks like when she lies to you. Pay very close attention to her when she's answering, because she's going to lie. Watch how her lips move, watch how her eyes move, watch where she looks. Notice how the tone in her voice changes. This will be useful information for later. But then there's a second main objective that asking a girl her body count directly achieves that I think is even more important, honestly. And that is, you put her on notice. Mark my words when I say this. There is no better way to induce tension and anxiety and a sense of urgency in a woman all at the same time as instantaneously as asking her what her body count is. Like seriously, it takes all the air out of them and it makes their heart skip a beat. It's probably the fastest way to take control of a conversation with a woman. If you're having framing issues and you find that she keeps winning the frame battle, hit her with one of those. So by the way, what's your body count? And don't lead up to it either. Don't be smooth with it. The more surprising it is, the better. Let it come out of fucking left field. And yeah, that's the story of why I never made it to prom. It's so embarrassing. So anyway, what's your body count? Insert evil genius laugh here. Now granted, it's probably better you do this with a girl you've already been seeing. Don't fuck around and do this within the first 3 dates. That's just socially uncalibrated. But a girl you've been seeing for a little bit, absolutely. Hit her with one of those, see what happens. So the question becomes, if she's gonna lie about her body count anyway, then what's the point of asking directly? I mean, sure, those two main objectives are pretty cool, but they do nothing to actually help you understand and know for a fact what your woman's sexual history is. And in order to answer that question, we first have to understand why men care so much about a woman's sexual history. More specifically, the two different kinds of men that exist when it comes to a woman's sexual history. Because when it comes to this, there's two different fields of study. There's the regular dude out there that thinks of a woman's sexual history as something to be scared of. The guys who honestly believe all this pseudoscience, frankly, about how a woman's ability to pair bond is diminished with each new dick. Whatever the fuck that means. Okay, maybe I'm being a little too harsh, because desensitization is a real thing. But the problem with that type of a belief system is that it's not empowering at all. And it's not empowering because it's an incorrect use and interpretation of a woman's sexual history. Allow me to give you a different perspective to a woman's sexual history. If you are simple-minded, then you probably have a very simplistic way of looking at a woman's sexual history. Probably something like, oh my god, a lot of dicks. That's gross. She's ridden the cock carousel. Ew. All those different men's DNA still swimming inside her. Ew. Listen, my friend, it's a little more complex than that. Yes, it's true, women can definitely be desensitized over time. The human body is made to adapt to stimulus, and sex, primarily, is stimulus. Lots of really good stimulus, especially if done right. But it's really short-sighted to see sex as the only way or most powerful way to stimulate women. Allow me to introduce you to this other new way of thinking. I've always thought that the way a sperm reaches the egg is a very interesting analogy for how men acquire women. If you paid attention in biology class, then you know that all the sperm cells race to get to the egg first. Early bird gets the worm. But not really. That's a very simplistic way of putting it. You see, upon arrival at the egg, the sperm cells still need to do a little bit more work to be able to fertilize the egg. The egg is covered in a series of protective layers of membrane. So the sperm cells have to secrete a certain potent acid to break each of those barriers down before it can get inside the egg. And believe it or not, the first sperm cell to get there doesn't necessarily have an advantage over the others. The cell that can break down all the protective layers of membrane is the one that wins. And once it's inside, the ovum knows to secrete a special chemical that repels all the other sperm cells. So even after that really long race through the uterus, sperm still has to do a lot of work to break into the ovum. So it's not the quickest sperm that wins, it's the most powerful. The sperm with the most potent acid that can dissolve all the membranes a lot quicker than the others. And why am I saying this? Because that's exactly how real life works too. Every time you run into a highly desirable woman, I want you to automatically assume that you have entered a race. A race for her soul. Yeah, let's make it dramatic, why not? But nah, seriously, you really have entered yourself into a race. And just like every race, there's a finish line. And every girl has her own unique finish line. And what is the finish line, you may ask? The furthest any man has ever come close to her. Another way of putting it is, the most impact any man has ever made in her. Because that's what really matters here. Not who's gone the longest, but who's gone the furthest. We're not talking about width here, we're talking about depth. The guy who has reached the highest levels of emotional relevance to her. The guy that she deems, in her mind, the most unforgettable. Like I said before, it is almost impossible to get the truth from women when you ask them what their sexual history is. So if you want the real gist from them, what you have to do is you have to pay very close attention to what they talk about in their past. Here's a few things, in my opinion, that you should be looking out for in general. This one's easy. Clubs. If she visits or frequents clubs in general, then it's safe to say she has a very, very extensive sexual history. It's actually really simple if you think about it. The very design of a club environment is for, well, sex. Women go there because of the validation overload, and men go there because it mathematically increases their chances of having sex. Plus, it's got all these other elements involved that make for sex to happen very easily. The loud music, the dimly lit room, the alcohol, all that is done by design. So if she likes clubs and is very comfortable in a club environment, you know your answer. Because the vast majority of women out there honestly believe that clubs are scary, as they should. Like I said, it's loud music, alcohol, a dimly lit room, and testosterone. Like, it's a bad combination to begin with. So any girl that's excited to go into that, ugh. If your girl has a friend that likes to go to clubs, birds of the same feather flock together. What, you think her friend likes to go to clubs and she doesn't? Pfft. They've been encouraging each other to do some whole shit. That's what they're friends for. And I could go into how women hate each other so much that they'll enjoy seeing the self-destruction of their friend. But honestly, that's just an entire other video. Moving on. This one's kind of obvious. Birth control. Really think about this. The entire reason birth control was invented in the first place is to completely eliminate the chances of one of the two major consequences of unprotected sex happening, which is pregnancy. We live in a world where women can have sex and not risk pregnancy at all. And what happens when women do that? They fuck. A lot. Because they know they won't suffer the consequences. So whenever you hear girls say, I am on birth control or I was on birth control, just understand and completely assume that that came with a very extensive whole phase. It happened. Just accept it. What, she was just taking birth control for no reason? You wouldn't walk around all day with a condom on and not get pussy. That's what it's for. Just accept it. And finally, her storytelling in general. Every story has a few major elements. Characters, props, location. Listen out for keywords like club and party and bar. If all her main stories involve one of those three things or locations, hey, again, just doing the math here, she's just put herself in a higher mathematical probability of getting fucked. So assume she did. If you were the best man on earth, you wouldn't worry about a woman's body count. Because if we're being honest, the main reason most men are very concerned with a woman's body count is because it A, desensitizes her to sex in general, but then B, it mathematically increases the chances that she's run into a guy that's quote unquote better. And absolutely no man wants to feel like they're playing second fiddle to somebody else, which is completely fair. The problem with that kind of thinking is that it reduces better as a concept to just sexual prowess, which is such a myopic and short-sighted way to view things. Believe it or not, and I'm speaking from experience here, you can be her worst sexual experience and her favorite ex-boyfriend all at the same time. You could have not done shit for her in the bedroom, but still be the guy she's willing to throw everything away for if you were to call her back right now. I am exaggerating a little bit, of course. I'm nobody's worst sexual experience. And you can believe me when I say that I am black. Okay, but seriously, I hope you get my point here. You shouldn't really be worried about body count. You should be worried about who's come the furthest in terms of her emotional relevance. Who's made her go through a lot more. Who's given her more spikes in her emotions and put her through a more intense emotional roller coaster. Who does she subconsciously compare every guy she meets to? And again, yes, mathematically speaking, the chances that that guy is very high level is much higher with a much higher body count, not to be redundant. But if you really think about it, that chance still exists even if her body count is only 3. Imagine you meet a girl and she's everything you've ever wanted. I mean, she checks all the fucking boxes, right? And she tells you her body count is only 3 dudes. And for whatever reason, you can actually go out of your way to confirm this as true. That makes you happy, that makes you joyful. Finally, I've met a girl that is a non-thought. But then at some point in the relationship, she lets it slip out that one of her ex-boyfriends is me. Well, now you're just fucked. You're just fucked. Because I guarantee you, I've gone a lot further than you can even imagine from an emotional relevance standpoint. Couple that with the years of extensive knowledge and experience that I have over most men out there, dude, you don't stand a chance. So don't worry about the width of the numbers as in the number of guys. Worry about the depths they've reached and find what that is quickly. Remember the finishing line analogy in the last part? Because this is where it gets interesting. That finishing line of hers gets pushed back a little further with each new guy that knows what they're doing. So what a competent guy does is figure out what her most intense experience is and then formulate a plan to beat that. Now I said her most intense experience, not her longest, because it's not about how long he stayed. It's about how much impact he made.